we did some research as to other Article 36 violations, and there's the Angela Briard case out of Virginia. There's the LeGrand case out of Arizona. These are all foreign nationals whose governments went to the International Court of Justice in The Hague and complained that there was an Article 36 violation. Now, for LeGrand and Briard, these were capital murder cases, and they were executed anyway. Scott's case, though, isn't, because Scott's here now. But to suggest, at the beginning when we go to Rob Andrews, who still is an influential member of Congress, to find out that there was no record, and then, a year and a half later to find out, oh, yes, there is a record, and then to go to his new congressman, Steny Hoyer, who's one of the most powerful men in Congress, to get a document, and this document, we do have a copy of it now, it is unsigned, but it has in very prominent letters that he's a U.S. citizen. Just to have all this silence now is just really shocking. And I had my own thoughts on why that's happening, but the bottom line is there's something else going on here. And it's related to Scott Loper, but it's more related to the fact that our government is just selling out Americans. I mean, this is our government. You would think that Steny Hoyer would go out there, be front and center, and say, I had a constituent, he was incarcerated, he was denied any consular contact, he was tortured, this is outrageous. I mean, what a great thing for one of our representatives to do. And there's just been silence. In fact, Steny Hoyer, to put it bluntly, just blew us off. And it is shocking. And, this is a story that needs to be looked at because, and I would urge all your listeners to contact Steny Hoyer and your own congresspeople, your own, congressmen, congresswomen, whatever the case may be, and bring this to light because this is real, and we have the proof, and we've sent this proof out to these people, and our representatives in Congress are ignoring it, and they're doing it intentionally. And it's like the most shocking thing I've ever come across in my life. Scott, back to you.
Yeah, it's, the story itself begins to become so surreal and bizarre, and you can certainly understand that trying to contact mainstream media and to try, and you call up a news editor and you say, do you have a minute to talk to me? And he says, yeah, that's all, you've got about a minute. And you're trying to blurt out, I was in Canada, and I was arrested and I was tortured, and they're like, okay, your minute's up, and they hang up. You sound like a madman trying. I mean, no, it's so unbelievable what happened unless you take the time to look at the documents that I faxed to Gary and other material. We have an investigative reporter from WorldNet Daily who's been on this from the beginning, and he's made the phone calls and he's talked to the right people.
Let me just add in there. Bob Unruh from WorldNet Daily has taken the lead on this, and he's written about this 5 or 6 times at this point, and nobody from our government or nobody from our government has opposed or brought anything contrary to the table to refute what Bob Unruh has already reported, and nobody else has done that either because it's all true.
Mm-hmm. Canada has never said I'm lying. They've never said it's outrageous. I mean, think about this, all of your listeners. If you represent a country and you were accused of horrific crimes like torture, wouldn't your first response, if you were innocent, your first response be to write back and say this is outrageous, this is, these allegations are insane, what do we need to do to disprove them, our books are open, this man's wrong. No. We got nothing like that. And the reason for that is if they say that, somebody's going to say, well, somebody's lying here. Let's see who's telling the truth. They can't stand up to that kind of scrutiny. I have names. I have dates. People are going to look into this. And when they do, I have the information, and I know who to tell them to talk to go right to it. Hundreds of Canadians know about this. Hundreds of people in America know about this. They know the truth. They know what happened. There's a gentleman at the State Department that's been involved in this since 2004, and I'm not going to give you his name on this conference call. I'll tell Gary privately who he is. Scott knows who he is. He told me he spoke with his counterpart in Canada who said, look, what happened to Mr. Loper is a terrible tragedy, but we can't let the Canadian people learn about this. They'll lose confidence in their police. The United States government has agreed to that. Cover-up continues, and I, as an American citizen, are left to twist in the wind, and yet the President of the United States will go to bat, go all the way to the Supreme Court with an illegal Mexican murderer of 2 young girls to prove that treaties have to be honored. Well, here I am, Mr. President. I'm the reason treaties have to be honored. You're right. You're right. If you don't enforce them, then other countries won't enforce them. You're right. But they'll do nothing. Nothing. They don't want this to come out. They want to bury it under the rug. And unless good Americans, like the people that are listening tonight, good Americans come to my aid and back me up, this is never going to come out. It's never going to see the light of day.
And you know what? I as a lawyer, have represented, the Philly 11 Christians who were arrested for causing a riot, ethnic intimidation, possessing an instrument of crime, and that instrument of crime was a Bible. We've taken on the government over some of these hard issues, and we've won. And we've won primarily because other normal-thinking, law-abiding, good American citizens have latched onto these issues and said, wait a second, what's going on? What is our government doing here? Like, why are we letting this happen? One person that I would urge all of the listeners tonight to contact would be Glenn Beck. Glenn Beck has a radio show. It runs 9 to 12 Eastern Standard Time out of New York on various radio stations. He's taken up the cause of Campion and Ramos. He's on these issues, but there's something tragically wrong with our government, and it's tragic because we have good American citizens who are being squished, and they're being prosecuted by our own and by foreign governments, and our government is just completely impotent to do anything, not because they can't, but because for some other reason, like perhaps maybe the North American Union, they choose not to, because we're going to accept everybody, sort of like the whole immigration issue. We're going to have open borders, and we're not going to say that if you aren't here legally that we're going to say you're illegal and we're going to throw you out. We're just going to accept everybody because we're not going to take any good position or hard position and say that what you're doing is wrong. And, no reasonable thinking human being would ever raise their children that way. And certainly we can expect that our government wouldn't allow citizens and the citizenry to act in the way of an irresponsible child. The union's not going to survive if this continues, and it's a problem.
If there was ever a case that needed Restore the Republic more, I can't think of one greater than mine. Because the people that are listening right now and the people that are involved with Restore the Republic certainly understand the implications. You can extrapolate out. If this happens to me, this is going to be the policy. This is going to be the policy of the United States government, because this is going to set a precedent. So that the next time it happens, maybe the American is not going to get out alive, and only by the grace of God that I get out alive. I don't think they expected me to live. But the next time. What about the next time?
And I just want to add, too, that for all the listeners out there, too, we have a representative government. We have a constitutional government, and it requires that our representatives do that which is in our interest as individual citizens and collectively what's in the interest of our citizens. And to fail somebody like Scott Loper, it's outrageous, but it's a conscious decision on the part of our government to just ignore this. And our government spends millions and millions and millions of dollars representing the causes of foreign nationals whose governments are willing to go to the International Court of Justice to seek redress under Article 36 of the Vienna Convention. We spend millions of dollars defending that, but our government just turns a blind eye when it's one of our own.